I like calling this jersey the sort of protest jersey for Bafana Bafana. It's the classical, iconic, jersey. I think that stems from the 90s era. And, there was a lot of uproar. I think just wedge drivers in society, really. People that do not want to hear or see anything good, or people to feel happy for a moment when we celebrated the Springboks winning the World Cup last year. I think it just kind of degenerated to straw clutching at the end of the day. This thing is quite basic. Bafana Bafana in 1996 won the... And by the way, this is why I'll never buy any of the modern Bafana Bafana jerseys. Obviously, this is a modern remake of the old, classic. But I'll only ever wear this because I feel it's my form. It is actually a form of protest, not only because it's just so iconic and it's a good looking jersey. I feel it's a form of protest, and the reason I say that is governance. I mean, if there isn't a proper governance overhaul within SAFA, the South African Football Association, then I'm not interested in stories that people want to nitpick on and say that, there's a special treatment for this team and that team. These guys had a chance. Like I said, 1996 they won the African Cup of Nations. I think at some stage we were in the top 20 or top 30 in the world in terms of the FIFA rankings. And we were a formidable force, but the last time we qualified for a World Cup, I think, was 2002. I was 7 years old, so that was, I think, the Korea, Japan were the co-hosts. South Korea and Japan hosted that World Cup. That was 2002. 2006 we didn't make it. 2010 was the last time we played, and that was only because we hosted the World Cup. On top of that, there was a whole bus tour, and it was a hugely multiracial crowd. You can go Google the images. I think you'll see stock photo watermarks on there. You'll see that it was a well-supported initiative. There was a bus tour that they did. I don't know how many parts of the country they covered. I don't quite recall, but I think that picture was taken in Johannesburg. And all races came out to support this team. It was another sort of galvanizing moment for the country. And people were there in their numbers. It was well supported. All of a sudden we had efficient civil service in some parts. There were courts that were functional, that were working. We put on a real spectacle for the world, and then when they all went back, we went back to sometimes the joke that we are to ourselves. So why should people give Bafana Bafana the same energy? Like I was in Cape Town watching the Springboks, the semi-final. I watched it at the V&A waterfront, and this guy was raising this question next to me, like, why don't we have the same energy for Bafana? And I'm like, listen, my guy, it's governance. And the majority of the people governing or have been governing and in positions of leadership at SAFA are black and colored people. Some of whom are now the ones complaining the loudest about the kind of noise and hoo-ha around the Springboks. Yes, we'll have issues. We can debate out transformation and all that jazz, but let's just focus on soccer. You've been governing. You are there. You feel that, like, from a cultural perspective, this is your thing, or is closest to you in this country, and at least in our context. But what kind of job have you been doing from a governance perspective? It's been paltry. Whenever I drive through townships and things like that, and I still see these sandy soccer fields, and I'm like, but am I really in 2024? What's happened to the development of the game? Go and check out the carte blanche. There's a carte blanche insert that they did on SAFA receiving over 600 million rand. That was from FIFA as a legacy grant. 600 million rand. This was supposed to be some forever sort of it's a legacy account, and it's supposed to have sort of produced more footballers, develop the game, professionalized structures, all that kind of jazz. But very little was shown for that. And I think, according to that video, they could only account for about 200 million, 300 million, more or less. But it was also, again, good chance that it was fruitless and wasteful expenditure. I mean, shocking that even Bafana had to stay in some soccer village that these guys supposedly had built, and the doors couldn't lock. How do you treat your highest teams like that? How do you treat your women footballers like that? That's pathetic, And how they had to fight for the monies from FIFA before they had to go to the World Cup. I mean, that's like proper, what you would say, manga stuff. So we are the ones there at the helm, black and colored people, and we're making a whole lot of noise about Saru and rugby and wanting to change symbols and all of that. That energy wasn't there before the World Cup. I don't buy some of this. It's just cheap political point scoring. It doesn't really even go into the thinking work. It doesn't even go into how you enrich the legacy and the recording of the history and legacy of black and colored people within, the game of rugby within South Africa. So if you spoke to something, and you wanted to maybe do something in the Eastern Cape, and you wanted to strengthen black rugby or areas that have been left out historically, that would have been a different conversation altogether. But it's easy to just sit and post a whole lot of it's just criticism basically, and there's no building work, because that's the boring work. That's the work that doesn't often let you do, the glitz and glam, the ribbon cutting, the handovers that these guys always want to be seen as doing. It requires actual thinking. It requires proper stakeholder engagement. It requires high standards of ethical leadership. It requires people that are honest, that are open, that are accountable. It's the stuff of culture. There's a culture that you have to build around these things so that you can achieve them. You don't thumb suck and just point fingers. I mean, that's the easiest thing to do. So I think Bafana Bafana has radically underperformed as a brand, massive brand. And it's let many people down. This is a massively popular sport. What have those at the helm of the governing of the sport, the development of the sport and the furthering of the sport done to try and improve the game? And yeah, they can't account for what they've been given in terms of funding. And yes, I did. When the AFCON was on, obviously it's my country. I did want them to do well, but yeah, I didn't put the same energy behind them as we always did. How many years have we been disappointed, year in, year out? And until I saw them reaching, a respectable stage in the tournament, I could start, following what's happening. And so I think them getting a bronze medal was a great achievement. We still clap hands for that. Coach Hugo Bruce, his technical team, and what the players eventually put in. Kudos to them. But other than that, I think there's much more or many more serious conversations we need to perhaps have with regards to how we govern ourselves. And this goes into the sporting realm. I mean, how many stakeholders and sponsors could these guys have with the balance sheet that they did, and a proper turnaround plan that would reflect on the field. People want to see results. We've seen Chasing the Sun. I think the first part that was produced a few years ago, people before Rassie could be backed financially, sponsors wanted to see that there was a plan and that they were going to carry out and execute what they needed to on the field. So this is this is worlds apart. It's proper governance that got those people there, that got Saru there. It's proper school structures, proper provincial and club structures. That takes time, that takes investment, and that takes people that are serious and are going to be accountable for running things properly, and not a dog show. So whether you like it or not, these are just the facts, and it's the way of the world and how things work anyway. So yeah, just annoyed when that whole furor broke out. But yeah, I guess it comes with the territory, and these will probably be the mutterings until we get South Africa to a certain level of of understanding of things, and people properly taking all round responsibility for the decay as well. But yeah, no one to blame but ourselves in many of these instances. So we need to take a deeper look. Sorry, those are jackals in the background.